A very good evening to you and welcome right here to Zim Daily. Today it's exactly, let me just check at the time here, it's 23:42 p.m. my time here where I'm coming to you from. And it's a very warm evening to you. We're just looking at the headlines for today, and I have a show that is packed with some very interesting things coming out of Zimbabwe tonight. And one of the stories that we're going to be looking at is the fact that the ZINASU president, Takudzwa Ngadziore, who has been at the forefront of trying to get Tawanda Muchayiwa's case, at least to try and make sure that there is enough awareness out there. Tawanda, who was abducted and eventually left for dead by what are suspected to be state security agencies. Agents is still that case. No one has been arrested so far, and ZINASU president has taken that on board to try and see what he can do as since Tawanda was a student at Midland State University, ZINASU, and he is a member of ZINASU, which is Zimbabwe National Students Union. So the president, who was trying to ensure that at least there is some awareness out there to ensure that Tawanda's case, the police are doing something to ensure that Tawanda has the case has been brought to, or someone to try and get people, the police to do their job, was arrested the other day while he was addressing a press conference. We have a story here that we are looking at, and Ngadziore denied bail. That's the student leader. This is a story that you would find in Zim Daily if you go on zimdaily.com. The story is quite interesting in the sense that this young man, who is actually a victim, is the one that, they've arrested the victim here. So as far as we're concerned, he had set out to address a press conference. And while he was addressing the press conference within the parameters that were set by the magistrate, he wasn't allowed to be as close, anything less than 100 meters to Impala, so he went 101, and he was just exercising his constitutional duty of representing students, but we know how it ended. The story goes like the Zimbabwe National Students Union President Takudzwa Ngadziore was today denied bail. It was earlier today, by Harare Magistrate Court Judith Taruinga, citing that Ngadziore, is a threat to public safety and has a propensity to continue committing the same offense. The matter has been remanded to October 5. So this young man is going to be languishing in prison for another 3 weeks at least. This is what Hopo Chingono was trying to highlight the other day, that the prison system, or the justice or lack thereof in Zimbabwe, is being used to punish the government, those that the government deems to be people opposing it. So the likes of ZINASU president here, who is actually accused of a very petty crime of trying to address an issue here. One of the students, he happens to be the ZINASU president, and Tawanda Muchayiwa, who was abducted by the state and by what are suspected to be state agents. He was trying to just highlight that since Tawanda is a member of ZINASU. But what do we see happening? He gets arrested. The victim gets in the case of ZINASU president here, he gets assaulted, and then instead of addressing those arresting those who assaulted him, they actually took him into custody. So today he appeared before the magistrate's court. The leader was handed over to the police after being assaulted by state security agents while addressing the journalist near Impala car rental premises. He was 101 meters away from the premises, in line with the bail conditions that had been set by Justice Taruinga. The court denied him bail, stating that the accused person undermines the bail system and public security. Magistrate Taruinga added it did not require rocket scientists to prove that the accused has shown propensity to continue committing the same offense. So as far as we're concerned, this young man did not commit any offense. We actually had Zimbabwe journalists who were filming the press conference. All he was doing was exercising his constitutional duty of protesting. The protest is actually enshrined within our constitution. You are allowed to protest as long as you're not being violent, and he did not exhibit any violence at all. He was just addressing a press conference. In fact, it is the other party that attacked him instead of him. Those that actually attacked him, instead of them getting arrested, they actually arrested the victim in this case. The magistrates, as we know, the courts in Zimbabwe are heavily politicized. They do not practice true justice, so to speak. Most of them are ZANU-PF sympathizers who are just masquerading as magistrates and judges. Gadzioro had been given a part of his first bail conditions to not be seen within 100 meters of the car rental company. He had been initially arrested for protesting against Impala after it emerged that one of their cars was used to abduct Tawanda Muchehiwa. Gadzioro's lawyer, Webster GT, argued that his client had the right to demonstrate and petition as enshrined in the Constitution, and also that his client did not breach the previous bail conditions as he held the press conference more than 100 meters away from Impala car rental premises. So this is what we see happening in Zimbabwe. It's so sad that we are seeing the court system being used to basically attack anyone that the government deems to be anti the establishment, and in this case the defiant ZINASU president, who was basically exercising his constitutional duty to protest. It is enshrined within our constitution, and he was actually assaulted. He is the victim in this case, but he has been arrested. As we're talking right now, he's languishing in remand prison, and instead of putting him in remand prison, they actually moved him into he's waiting for his second bail application, which the judge has said she is more than willing to consider on the 5th of October. But what we know from what has been happening, gauging with what's been happening with the cases of Hope Wichingon and the others, we know that they're going to appeal with the High Court.
I missed that. Could you say it again,
Yes.
please?
So they will be appealing the case.
I'm not sure I understand.
All right, so we have something going on here. Sorry about that. So we have we're looking at the latest news that is coming out of Zimbabwe tonight. The story we've been looking at is Gadzioro, who is the ZINASU president, has been denied bail. That's an interesting story. Also, one of the stories we want to be looking at tonight as you join us for this episode of Today in the Headlines, or today's headlines, is there's quite a lot that's been happening on Twitter today regarding the MDC Alliance. The MDC Alliance, many, as you have been following the stories around what should happen since by-elections have been called for the 5th of December, should the MDC Alliance rebrand? That's those that have been following Twitter today have seen quite a lot of traffic around this topic. Should it be rebranding as a party? We've seen quite a lot of backlash in terms of the politicization of the courts by one Thokozani Kupe, who is basically working in cahoots with the government to deny the MDC Alliance, which is totally a different party to MDCT. Just yesterday, just the other day, I think it was on Saturday, we came to understand that now Thokozani Kupe is arguing that they are the legitimate MDC Alliance party. So one of the stories that we have been following today is around the fact that the MDC Alliance still remains defiant over Kupe's party grab attempts. And this is a battle that we feel is not worth fighting as far as we are concerned as outsiders and spectators outside both these political parties. We feel that the MDC Alliance should just drop this MDC Alliance name or the MDC name and totally rebrand. That's the way we say it, because it's just going to cause it's been going in circles. Those that have been following Zimbabwean politics, even during Tsvangirai's time, we know that Welshman Ncube left with the real MDC, and then you had MDCT, then you had MDC 99, and then there's been so many MDCs out there, and for them to keep holding on to a name that is so that we feel is totally damaged in so many ways than not, we don't feel that it is the right course of action to take. But who are we in this? But we are just looking at this as spectators. That we strongly believe that the MDC alliance should be rebranding, and this is a question that we're posing to those that are listening to us. Do you feel that they should maintain the name MDC Alliance, even though we know the other the ZANU PF backed party is insisting that they are the MDC Alliance, and they're arguing because the alliance is actually it's a union of different parties, and MDCT being one of them, so they have the rightful they should be they're the rightful owners of the MDC Alliance brand. So should Chamisa and his so-called MDC Alliance, should they be rebranding under these circumstances? So we're looking at this story here. We understand that the MDC Alliance remains defiant, and they are saying that they have reiterated that it will not be changing its name amid recent strange developments in which Thokozani Kupe's MDCT claims it will go for the by-elections as MDC Alliance. So there you go. We have now Thokozani Kupe even claiming the name MDC Alliance. If you actually look at it, what's happening here, they are arguing that MDC Alliance is not really a party. What is a party is the MDCT. The alliance is actually made up of 6 or 7 different other parties, of which MDCT is one of them. So they are arguing that since the courts have recognized them as the rightful MDC party, it goes without saying, or it kind of follows that they should also reclaim the name MDC Alliance. So it is what it is, and this is how things actually operate in Zimbabwe. As you know, MDC Alliance went into the elections as a different party, and MDCT also as a totally different entity. But as it is what it is, they seem to have the courts behind them, and they are going all the way. So what should Chamisa do under these circumstances? What should he be doing? I just want to hear from you. If you're listening to us, and should the MDC Alliance be involved in serious rebranding if they're going to be taking part in or if they're going to be contesting the by-elections? It's only a couple of weeks away. And as far as we're concerned, I think they should do the right thing, maybe rebrand totally to something that has got nothing to do with MDC. We have seen this circus play out for the past 7 years, at least since 2013, or even longer than that, where when the MDC split and you had Tendai Biti who left and formed the PDP, and then you had Welshman Ncube who formed MDC, who claimed he was the rightful MDC, and then Tsvangirai came up with the MDCT, then with Job Sikala with MDC 99. Then there has been so many MDCs, and we think that this is the right time for Nelson Chamisa to be considering forming at least his own party that has got nothing to do with MDC. In other words, Chamisa has the numbers. You saw from the elections that many people that took part in the elections, even the MPs, some of them did not do very well. You had people voting for a ZANU PF MP, but for Chamisa as a president. So Chamisa himself is a brand by himself, and it doesn't matter what he calls his party. If he decides to call it Chamisa Zimbabwe, I'm sure he will have the following, because generally politics in Africa is about personalities. It is very little to do with policies and the like. They are traitors. This is what I am some of the comments that we are seeing here. Welcome to Today in the Headlines. We're just going to be taking a short break, and we will be right back. This is Zimbabwe Daily, and we are looking at the latest news that is coming out of Zimbabwe tonight. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Right. We are looking at the headlines, and the main headline, in fact, the main story that is coming out of Zimbabwe tonight is around the NEM MDC alliance. Those that have been following us on Twitter, there has been a Twitter storm throughout the day. People are arguing that this is the right time for Nelson Chamisa to at least consider rebranding MDC Alliance into a totally different entity. He should not even be considering calling himself, and some of the names that we had being thrown around are names like Alliance for Democratic Change, ADC, and that and all, and I mean, things that have something to do with even the name Democratic Change. Alliance for Democratic Change is one name that I saw on Twitter today, and it seemed to be garnering quite a lot of support. But as far as we are concerned, as spectators who are looking at this, at least from the terraces, we feel that Nelson Chamisa should be looking at rebranding MDC completely into a totally new beast. Right, something that will not confuse anyone. If Chamisa calls himself Chamisa Zimbabwe, or he calls his party Chamisa Zimbabwe, or whatever he decides to call it, as long as it has nothing to do with MDC, we feel that's a better way of actually responding to some of the attacks that they have been receiving recently. So we want to look at the comments here. I think we have Emmanuel Nyakonda here agreeing with us. He thinks that rebranding is the best course of action here. And we also want to hear from you what you think. Should Nelson Chamisa be rebranding his party, or should he continue fighting to retain the name MDC Alliance? Just the other day, we know Thokozani Kupe, they had whatever they called their meeting over the weekend, where they were reviewing or making preparations for the elections, or for the by-elections in December, starting from the 5th of December. And they have actually gone all the way to reclaim the name MDC Alliance. They are arguing that since MDC Alliance is not necessarily a party, but it is an alliance or a union of different parties, of which MDCT is the actual principal party in there. So she is arguing that since she is MDCT and the main component of MDC Alliance, it just makes sense for her to claim the name MDC Alliance. So these are some of the headlines that we're getting out of Zimbabwe tonight. We just want to look at a few more as we look at today in the headlines. One of the interesting stories that we were looking at today is around the fact that there was a statement that was released by a body that calls itself Zimbabwe online content creators. So these are the guys that are involved in online news that I believe Zim Daily actually falls under this body, which is purely online. We as Zimbabwe, we are part of this body that calls itself Zimbabwe Online Content Creators. One of our journalists who was actually filming this attack on the Zinasu president on Friday was also assaulted, and basically this body that represents our journalists that are on the ground released a statement today saying that they are disturbed by the recent attacks on journalists. The statement says the Zimbabwe Online content creators have issued a statement of concern over the recent attacks on the journalists by unidentified people during the Zinasu press conference addressed by its president Takudzwa Ngadziore on Friday. Journalists were attacked by assailants on Friday while they were covering a press conference. We actually caught this whole we actually captured this whole the whole episode on camera, and we have enough evidence if we were to be asked to present the evidence in court. We have that evidence that clearly shows that Ngadziore was not the perpetrator of the crime that was committed against him on Friday. He was purely exercising his constitutional duty of protesting. In fact, protesting is one of the, when we rewrote the constitution, the new constitution that was voted overwhelmingly by the majority of Zimbabweans. One of the things that were put in that constitution was the right to protest. As long as you're not breaking the law, in the case of Ngadziore, who was merely 101 meters away from what his bail conditions stipulated, he did everything that he could do to ensure that he was within the confines of the law. But regardless of all that, we have what we suspect to have been ZANU-PF supporters who totally unprovoked attack on Ngadziore. We have the video evidence. In fact, I have a copy of the video. Let me just see if I can pull it here. This was recorded by our journalists who were covering this attack last Friday. This video evidence, we are more than willing. It's preserved somewhere. We know there were attempts by those that actually attacked Ngadziore. There were attempts for them even to retrieve the evidence so that they could destroy it, but we managed to escape with the evidence. I'm just going to play about half a bit of that evidence for you so that you can appreciate that this had nothing to do with the ZINASU president breaking the law. He is a victim of this vicious attack by suspected ZANU-PF thugs. And yet he's the one that is languishing in remand prison. Those that perpetrated this crime are walking scot-free in the streets of Harare as we speak tonight. As you can see from this video, I'm just going to play parts of the video so you can appreciate what exactly happened. So this is in Ngadziore when we recorded this live. Just watch what is happening here and you understand exactly what happened.
That the Zimbabwean students or the Zimbabwean youth are not acting. We are here, we've been acting, we've had demonstrations in the street. I was arrested and out. Speaking the truth, 9 of our team were arrested. She is part of the team which were arrested. To arrest a female student lead, to arrest a woman, the military junta has no shame to go. But we are speaking out on behalf of the masses. So we are then going to the social justice fight in which we're going to introduce a people power campaign. The people power campaign is anchored across 5 pillars. Number 1, truth, reconciliation and forgiveness. Number 2, economic and social reform. Number 3 is CAC, citizen action against corruption. Number 4, healthcare for all, ICFA. Number 5, text to educate. But this all responds to the decay in our country, the shambolic state of our economy, the hard-hitting social environment, the social ills which are being practiced by the students at tertiary institutions. I, as the president of the Zimbabwe National Students Union, as the chairperson of the youth committee under the Crisis Coalition, number 1. Number 3, as the former student representative council of Great Zimbabwe University, we are never going to be silent. We are going to speak through to the injustice that are going to happen. And if it happens that we are going to be dead, so be it. We are not afraid of death. We know one day we are going to die. Thank you very much. Muchishona tingangoti tauya pano impala tinozviziva kuti ndivo vakarendesa mota kune vakatora mumwedu mudzidzi wepaMiddle State University tawanda muchegewa.
Right. Now watch what's going on here, and I'm just going to right, as I pause this video, I just want you to watch very closely. We're just trying to explain here what actually happened on Friday. We had our journalists who were actually covering this press conference by the ZINASU president, and they were attacked, unprovoked attack against the ZINASU president. You will see it play out just now when I play it. He was merely addressing a press conference, and then you have what are suspected ZANU-PF thugs who actually approach him. You see the lady there notices that things are getting a bit dangerous, so she tries to walk away, and then you will see the assailants actually coming very close and attacking the president, the ZINASU president. And yet, after all this evidence, which we have this evidence, and we are more than willing to present it to the police because we were covering this event. Our journalists were covering this event on the ground, and we managed to record every piece, every part of the attack. But you then would expect those that actually attacked him to be the ones in custody. But what you see happening is the Zinasu president gets arrested, and right now he's in Chikurubi maximum security prison, with at least that prison that Hope Wechungono was saying was designed for 16 inmates, but is housing over 70, and he is languishing in that remand prison for a crime that was committed by the other party. So we just want you to appreciate the type of justice or even law enforcement that we have in Zimbabwe, which is very partisan in its nature. You have the victims that are meant to be the ones that are being defended in this case, languishing in remand prison because the system there is tilted against anyone who opposes the government. So I'm going to play this part. I'm going to just rewind it a bit so you can appreciate what is going on here. We are looking at today's headlines right here on Zimbabwe Daily. And thank you very much for joining us, looking at the headlines. And we are looking at the fact that the Zinasu president, who appeared in court earlier today, has been denied bail. And his case he's actually remanded in Chikurubi maximum security prison until October 5. You have ZANU-PF using the judiciary or the justice system to basically punish anyone who says anything against them. And yet you have so many people. You have actually the ANC, for example, that came to Zimbabwe the other day. They are kind of singing from the same hymn book with ZANU-PF, saying there is no crisis in Zimbabwe. And yet these things that are captured on video with the evidence to show that Ngadziwore or Takudzwo, the Zinasu president in this case, is a victim of a crime. And yet he is the one languishing in prison tonight. Let's watch this. Watch this. I'm just going to rewind it a bit, and what happens just before you see the lady who is next to him. You can actually see from the way that she's looking. So they are seeing these assailants approaching them, and she's very worried because she was also arrested with him the other day, and she is a bit careful here. So she looks at what is happening, and then this is before she realizes now that there are people approaching to attack them. So I'm going to play the video again. So you see these thugs that are approaching them. You'd expect that if he has broken any law, right, you expect at least the police to be the ones dealing with the situation here. But what happens in Zimbabwe is you have a government that uses militia, or rather it makes use of a non-assailants who then get away with it. Even in the case of Itai Dzamara and Tawanda Mucheiwa and all that, these are unidentified, but we know very well that they have been sent by the ruling party. They are suspected ZANU-PF thugs. Basically, as you can see on the screen here, they come in civilian. They are not even the police. And we know that if the Zinasu president had broken any law, you expect the police to be dealing with it. Watch this. So you see this guy who looks very, 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 very suspicious, and also you've got two other guys here that are approaching on the far right of the street, and you've got a few others. There's actually a lady. If you look right at the back of the picture here, there's a lady who has also been sent. So she has been sent to deal with the ladies, and these guys are coming to deal with the men that are part of this. So there is the guy approaching, and we are capturing this. Actually, our journalist is the one that captured this video as he approaches, And then watch what happens. So the first thing that he does is to stop the media, and we're actually working with some other journalists that have, as far as the constitution is concerned, journalism is not a crime. Whatever happens, even if there is a crime that is being committed, you deal with the crime and leave the journalist to cover their story. So we're pretty much the fourth state in all this. But these thugs, what they want to do is to silence us so that we do not report on this. So let's see what happens. So the guy basically stops everyone who's filming. We're standing a little further away, so we're capturing the shots. And then we realize that it is now dangerous. So our journalist then flees. Right. So they're basically running away from the scene. So this is the type of Zimbabwe that we are dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. As we look at today in the headlines, we are looking at some of the things that will just leave you dumbfounded, especially when you're following what is happening in Zimbabwe today. Looking at today in the headlines, the Zimbabwe president who appeared in court today has once again been denied bail. And this is a story that is really, because we were very involved with this since we're covering the story, it's at the heart of some of the things that we feel we must be doing as journalists. And you have the likes of Nick Mangwana then, who says that there's no crisis in Zimbabwe. They goes on to say independent journalists are free to practice as much as they feel like in Zimbabwe, but we know that is not the case. We have offered this as evidence that this guy was attacked by what we suspect to be ZANU-PF thugs. These guys had nothing to do. You would expect the police were just standing a few meters away from the scene. You would expect to at least for the police to arrest these guys who were assaulting someone who was merely exercising his constitutional duty of protesting. But what happens is they basically leave these assailants, and then they arrest the peaceful, including even the journalists. We know that 3 or 4 of the journalists who were also covering this story were taken into custody. In fact, some of the equipment was confiscated, and we managed to escape with evidence, and we have this evidence just waiting for our day in court. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, looking at today in the headlines right here on Zim Daily. Please stay tuned as we look at some other stories that are making the headlines today. One of the stories that we were looking at was around the Zimbabwe online content creators who are disturbed by the attacks on journalists. So we are actually registered online content creator, and we have our journalists who are well accredited in Zimbabwe to practice journalism. So in as much as they have the licenses, they are not working against the law. In fact, we had them where they had something that was clearly written media in front of them, and they had all their accreditation cards just to prove that they are not practicing outside the confines of the law. So this is what happens, or what is happening in Zimbabwe. We're also looking at another story, interesting story, where Hubert Angel, this is a story that we've been following throughout the day as we look at the headlines for today. Hubert Angel donated to 1,000, at least on the positive side, for a change in Zimbabwe. There are many that accuse us of only carrying stories that have negative connotations around what or things that are happening in Zimbabwe. But we have a very positive story today. Hubert Angel donated maize meal to over 1,000 households. This happened over the weekend. You can see some of the recipients of that aid, or you can see them here. Many of them actually were showing signs of happiness, as these are some of the guys that benefited from this act of kindness. Hubert Angel, who is based here in the United Kingdom, has been at the forefront. Some of the work that he has been doing to ensure that he also makes an impact, or rather helps the situation in Zimbabwe, has been heavily involved in assisting those that are suffering in Zimbabwe. Prophet Hubert Angel, through the Hubert Angel Foundation, yesterday donated maize meal to over 1,000 households in Glenora. So these are members of Hubert Angel Foundation as they were delivering the aid. Some of these stories, in case you're joining us for the first time, please feel free to go to www.zimdaily.com if you want to read more on this. We are looking at the stories that are making the headlines. We're just going to take a short break and we will be right back. Right. So we're looking at the stories making the headlines here. We have just been looking at this act of kindness from Hubert Angel, who has donated over 1,000 bags of maize meal to 1,000 families. As you can see here from some of the visuals that we are showing here on the screen, these are some of the beneficiaries or those that received this act of kindness. We also want to look at one interesting story, one that we have been looking at throughout the whole day. This actually made, there was a Twitter storm on Twitter today around the fact that the MDC Alliance is being urged to rebrand. So we want to hear from you. What do you think? Should the MDC Alliance or should Nelson Chamisa, should he keep defiant and fight in these ZANU-PF courts to retain the name MDC, or should he be thinking or seriously thinking of rebranding? After all, we know that politics in Africa is about personalities. It has nothing to do, or it has very little to do with policy. Most people just follow personalities, in this case Chamisa, who is a brand. So whether Chamisa forms a new party and calls it whatever he calls it, we're more than confident that he will still retain the support that he needs. But according to the statement or some of the messages that we are receiving from the official MDC messaging platform, they are saying that they are reiterating that it will not be changing its name. MDC will not be changing, or rather MDC Alliance will not be changing its name amid recent strange developments in which Thokozani Kupe's MDCT claims it will go for the by-elections as MDC Alliance. The Nelson Chamisa-led alliance confirmed that it will not be changing its name after the meeting of the party's National Executive Council. We know the National Executive Council of the MDC Alliance met over the weekend, and they're just confirming that they are not, or they do not have any appetite to change the name MDC Alliance to something else. But we know because of the pressure that a lot of people are actually those that obviously have a say within what happens within the party. You've got supporters that are outside the MDC. I think they are now putting the pressure now to try and convince the leadership to think otherwise. This whole circus has been going on since at least 2012 when the first split occurred, and it's almost 8 years now. They've been playing ping pong with the name MDC. We strongly believe, as outsiders who have got no stake in all this, we are just watching from the terraces here, and our advice to Nelson Chamisa, if by any chance he manages to listen to us, is for him to rebrand. Definitely, he should basically find a name that has got nothing to do with MDC or even any reference to democratic or to change or even to alliance. I think some of the names that were being thrown all over the place, I remember when I was looking at Twitter today, one name that kind of was gathering momentum is Alliance for Democratic Change. That's ADC. I mean, come on, there are many other names that you could come up with out there. Why continue circling around the name Democratic Change? Doesn't make sense. But there was quite a lot of support for the Alliance for Democratic Change as a name, so that MDC will have a totally different name. But I mean, we strongly believe that if Chamisa is going to form a party that has got anything that has got nothing to do with MDC, or does not even mention democratic change, or does not even is not even close to any of these acronyms that we are seeing here, we have no doubt that he will prevail in the next election, because politics in Africa is about personalities. It has very little to do with policy and what people stand for. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you for listening to this show tonight. As we continue, we will just look at some of the comments that we are seeing here. Anderson Mangena is saying here, Anderson Mangena, nothing is confusing. People, we on the ground won't be confused at all. So that's a comment there around whether the MDC Alliance should consider changing its name to something else. Some of the supporters that we are seeing here that are joining us tonight, they're insisting that there will not be any confusion. We have PP Doc says that we are on the ground and we will not be confused. And there is a follow-up there from PP. He says we have already on the ball educating our people on Monzora Kwame Chikupe Zanuyot Zimbabwe clear this time around. I think what is going on here is I think this whole fight around the name MDC, as if it's the only acronym that you can come up with in this world, for us who have nothing to gain from this. I think it's just it's not worth fighting for anymore. There is more to politics than the name MDC. So let's encourage those that at least have access to the leadership in the MDC. This is totally an input that has got nothing to do. We've got nothing to gain from this, but we're just advising as spectators. Yes. So we have people also saying that no need to rebrand, and he keeps on saying whatever name they will try to destroy us, because MDCA is for the people. No need to rebrand. The pressure is now coming from ZANU-PF people and Kupe and ZANU. So everyone who tries to advise the MDCA, you end up getting labeled as ZANU, or we are now being called ZANU people, because we are advising them to walk away from this name MDC. I think slowly they will come to that realization that MDC, the name MDC itself, is damaged goods. It's not worth fighting for anymore. So many thanks for joining us. We are just going to end this program tonight as we have been looking at the headlines. Today in the headlines, we will end this evening's headlines with another story here that we have been looking at. Government to review salaries for health workers. So this is an interesting story, as we know that the Vice President, who also doubles as the Minister of Health, basically we understand he demanded another portfolio just to flex his muscles. Basically, we understand he was kind of getting frustrated that he was being sidelined. So he walked into the office of the president and reminded him that, remember, we are the ones that put you in power, and therefore demanded to be given, or rather the president offered him to run the health ministry. One of the reasons why he is involved with that, there is a lot of money that is coming from the World Health Organization. I believe it is the only ministry right now that is funded exclusively, well, in most part by foreign money, as they try to respond to the to COVID-19. So one can only suspect that the reason why Chiwenga is dipping his dirty hands in that portfolio is because he sees the money that the World Health Organization is extending to countries that are impacted by this pandemic. So that hard currency that is flowing into the coffers of the health ministry, he wants to get his hands, at least he wants to be the one overseeing how that money is distributed. We can't think of any other reason other than that. Anyway, the government of Zimbabwe is placed that it will soon review salaries and working conditions for health workers. This was confirmed by the Health Minister, Vice President Constantino Chiwenga during yesterday's tour of 3 international airports: Robert Mugabe International, Joshua Mkabugo, and also Victoria Falls International Airport. So that's the Vice President. He, instead of touring maybe hospitals to try and address some of the things that Hope will highlighted, especially around the fact that you have over 2,000 women that die in hospitals every year. Every single year, we are losing 2,000 mothers who are dying trying to give birth. And these are things that could easily be addressed if we were channeling the resources at exactly where those resources should be going. But as you know, Zimbabwe is a banana republic, so everything goes. The reason why Chiwenga is there, he wants to be the one receiving that money that has been earmarked for COVID-19. He wants to be the one having a say on what happens to it. He will probably be exchanging that money for Zimbabwe dollars, and then they will channel it somewhere else. He was touring these airports in order to assess their readiness to deal with traffic in the wake of announcement by government that both domestic and international flights are soon to resume operations. The minister did not, however, provide the exact percentage, saying, "I will not tell you the percentage we have given you, but you see when the negotiations are over." Airports had been closed since March due to the government-imposed lockdown regulations that were meant to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus. So on this very note, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for listening to us. This is a program where we try and summarize or look at the latest headlines that are coming out of Zimbabwe. Today in the headlines here on Zim Daily, I'll just run through some of the things that we looked at tonight. The first headline we looked at, as we were looking at today in the headlines, is the fact that the ZINASU president has been denied bail. This is a young man that is being punished for merely standing up for a student who was abducted by state security agents, and he's basically trying to find, at least highlight or bring awareness to some of these evils that are being perpetrated by the state. But instead of them addressing the issues that he's raising, what do? They arrest him after assaulting him. And those that were involved in the assault, they are walking the streets of Harare as we speak. Another story that we were looking at tonight is the fact that the Zimbabwe online content creators are disturbed by the attacks on journalists. So we are online content creators. Our journalists were attacked, but we managed to escape without major or serious injuries. So we have the evidence of those people that were actually involved, and we're more than happy to present it to the police. But as you know, the justice system in Zimbabwe is very tilted against anyone who's considered not to be towing the government line. So we will present that evidence as soon as as an opportunity presents itself. Hubert Angel donates 1,000 to 1,000 households in Zimbabwe over the weekend. And lastly, one of the questions that we've been trying to address tonight is, should the MDC Alliance be thinking of rebranding? However, over the weekend, I think they said and concluded that there is no need whatsoever to rebrand. But hopefully they will listen to some voices of reason out there. But for now, we will continue to follow their plans. In fact, there is only a couple of days now, or weeks rather, until we have the next election. So we hope they are seriously looking into this. They do not want to end up in a situation where they are going to be defeated on technicalities. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on Zim Daily, Zimbabwe Daily, we have been looking at the stories making the headlines today. Zimdaily.com is the place to be if you want to at least follow the latest that is coming out of Zimbabwe. We are always first, and we ensure that we are also fast. www.zimdaily.com is where you can find us, and thank you for joining us tonight. God bless you. Bye-bye.